Welcome in, everybody, to the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. It's the first Lastella Report here in the new year. Robbie, Lastella, Drew Shula, we're back here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network talking everything FAU today. Some college thoughts from us as well as the college football playoff wages on and in the CBB world and all across college athletics. Eligibility becomes even more crazier day by day now. JUCO ruling a couple weeks ago for Diego Pavia has opened the door for many new players to have an extra year at FAU as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. But first, Drew, it's been a minute since we've done one of those things. How's it going? How's the holidays?
It was a good holiday break. Took a little break from everything. Watched the bowl games, bet on them a little bit. Yeah, it was really good. Excited to get back into it. I haven't been on the Lastella Report in a long time, so uh, bringing back some good memories. Excited to talk some FAU ball. Haven't talked about that in a while. So, how about you? How was your holidays? Good.
It was good. It was good. Same here. Got to see some family. FAU. God bless them after a tough road stretch in the non-conference schedule. They got some well-off holiday time, which I enjoyed as well. A little break from the good old beat. So we were back in action last night though, and we're back on here today. Should be back on our normal 8 p.m. Tuesday time slot. Hopefully, starting up here in the next week and into the new year. So that'll be good as well. But wanted to get here to you guys before the end of the week this week because obviously FAU basketball back in action last night. A disheartening defeat at the hands of Memphis at home. And that one was there's no other way to describe it. It was just a stinker. Not much to really harp on for FAU, but there were a few things I will say that were positive in that one for FAU. But overall, 5 of 31 from beyond the arc. That's just not gonna cut it against a Memphis team, which Drew, I think it's the best one we've seen now. Even the tournament team that FAU, barely snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat, still won that game nevertheless. But I still think this team that they have now is better than that one. I think PJ Haggerty, we were talking about this with Christian the other day. I don't know necessarily if he is going to be an NBA guard, but he is a heck of a college guard for sure. And outside of him, they got a ton of depth. So a tough loss for sure. But before we get into a little bit, Drew, any thoughts overall on the game yesterday? Atmosphere, I thought was pretty good. I will say for no students in the dorms.
Yeah, for a break, I was pretty impressed with the crowd. I thought it'd be a little more empty in that arena. Memphis is going to draw a crowd whether they're ranked or not, and they happen to be ranked. So even though FAU is having a down year of sorts compared to the last two, there were still the fans still showed up. Unfortunately, the product was not good enough for them to stay the whole time. Yeah, no, a lot of thoughts on the game. I think, first and foremost, I think I say a lot, a lot of people say a lot, you can't shoot yourselves in the foot, and they did, but not in the way that they usually, would. Usually I feel like it's turnovers, but FAU won the turnover margin in this one. It really came down to, you said it to me, John Jacobs said in his presser, the 3-point shooting was not to par, not even to par. They weren't even,
They were bogeying left and right, Drew. They were bogeys all over.
terms, it was a little triple bogey action, maybe even a triple bogey plus one, like in the high school days. That's where you max out. But
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, 5 for 31 on 3-point shooting, 4 for 18 from wide open threes. You got to double that number at least just to have a chance to be in the game with Memphis. I thought a competitive first half where they went down. I think it was a 14-2. They ended the half 42-32. So technically they outplayed them after that stretch. But you can't go down 14-2. We were used to that last year, I think. But our team was talented enough to get out of that hole that they put themselves in. But this team, they got work to do in year one of the John Jacobs era. I don't think the guards, held up. I didn't think they were going to. And then the bigs, they kind of got it handed to them in the second half. I think in the first half they did a pretty good job keeping Musa Cease and Dane Danja off the scoreboard and out of the paint. The second half was not the same. They were fouling left and right, and they were getting to the free throw line.
Yeah, I thought I didn't know if FAU was going to win that game, but I did not think it would be a 30-point blowout.
Oh,
So that's the only part that's a little bit concerning is you're not going to win all these games, especially in year one. But what you want to see is you want to see them be competitive. And early on, it was respect to FAU. They battled back after a slow start. They fell behind 14-2, 10-0 in the rebound battle, which to me is that's a sign you're getting a little bit out physicaled early on. But to their credit, they did battle back. They kept it within 10 most of the first half. Cut it to single digits a bunch, and then they did win the offensive rebound battle overall, which that's something you want to see going forward. They did good against Jacksonville, who's one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They're a top 40, I believe. So, that's pretty solid. And then Memphis, I'm not sure. I don't believe they're actually too good on the defensive glass. So that's a game to their credit. FAU did what they should and won the offensive glass, but they weren't able to turn those second chances and points off turnovers into enough to really make this a ball game. Now, had they hit, 10 3-pointers, 10 out of those 18 open triples, then maybe we're talking about a closer game. So that's the thing is, we asked Coach Jacobs after the game, or I did, how is there any thought to adjusting the offense when the shots aren't falling like this? And I don't think they're ready to necessarily make those changes yet. And I understand that 100%. I mean, this is a system that, there's a lot of very smart basketball minds on that staff. Jordan Fee, John Jacobs, Isaiah Austin Oblam, all those guys, AD, all these guys, they've had times in various spots in basketball to make this offense very, fine-tuned and analytically based. And so I'm trusting the process because I do think, if the shots fall, we've seen this team compete with UCF, who, they're pretty solid right now. They're on the way to potentially getting an at-large bid there, and they were really in all these games up until these last two against Michigan State and Memphis. So, I understand. Some fans are concerned about the 3-point shooting, and it is a little bit concerning. But it's basketball, and sometimes shots aren't going to fall, and the big thing is you don't want that sometimes to be all the time. When it becomes all the time is when things don't work out. For that set of team, and then you do have to make those offensive adjustments. But I don't think that's this team. I mean, we've seen them shoot lights out. They're still definitely top 100 in the country in 3-point shooting, probably top 50, I believe. I'd have to go look, but still very solid in that department. But last night wasn't going to get the job done. Going forward, an East Carolina team, which, they just lost in blowout fashion on the road to USF. They're going to want to come in here and defend their home court against an FAU team, which to them, a team, Felton, RJ Felton, who's, their leading guard. Cam Hayes was there last year as well. And both of those guys played against the old FAU team. I feel like that's how a lot of the AAC teams are going to see this. I mean, those teams are not this team. And so they're going to be looking at this. It's no dig against this FAU team. They're going to be looking at it less than they looked at the past matchups. And that's just because, look at the guys who are on that last team where they're at now and the success that they had. So they're going to be trying to think of this game in a little bit of a lesser manner. And I think that opens the door for this FAU team to be that underdog, to be that team that, FAU was before they went on that Final Four run. They were the underdogs. They were the hunters. And I think, this is a game on the road where ECU is going to want to bounce back and think they're playing, team on the ropes a little bit in FAU. And FAU can really turn the tides on their season and keep things, on track with a win here against ECU on the road. It's a winnable game for sure. FAU will have the size advantage. if their shots can fall against ECU, I'm confident they go and get that road win and get things turned around. But we'll see. Drew, are we concerned with the 3-point shooting at all, or are we gonna think? Are we thinking these shots are gonna start falling eventually?
I am concerned because it's a repeat offense, and I don't think these guys were sharpshooters at their last spot. That's my thing. So history says, I think the five. What was it? 5 for 31. However many threes we attempted and missed. Maybe that's a little bit of a fluke. I definitely don't expect us to shoot 14% or whatever the math says. But I'm not sure if the quantity of threes we are taking, if that is our most productive basketball. I see yesterday when I see a Colby Rogers who's 5 inches shorter than Baba Miller, or a PJ Haggerty or a Tyrese Hunter getting matched up on Baba Miller, ISO ball. I think that was the way we stay in the game right there, because he was the go-getter. He's the most talented player on the offensive side of the ball. I definitely think that that should have been, not coming in the game plan. You can't just let him play ISO ball the whole game. There's ways to, and with that trap defense, that physicality that Memphis brings, where they will force turnovers because of their speed on the defensive side and scheme. I wouldn't say, that the whole time, but I don't think Baba put up enough shots based on where the game was headed, and how many threes we were missing.
Yeah.
So, I won't lie. I'm a little bit concerned with 3-point shooting, and I think that's a fair concern, in my opinion.
That's what we saw in the 4-game win streak, 3-game win streak, whatever it was. FIU, Texas State, Jacksonville. So 3. Those 3 games, FAU, the 3-point shot was there, but it wasn't. It didn't have to be everything. They were attacking the rim, using their size to do what they should against teams that are undersized. And Memphis is a lot different than Jacksonville, Texas State, and FIU, but you can still use your size, your physicality. This FAU team is big, not just in height, but in length. These are lanky guys, Baba especially. And so against ECU, what I really want to see is a return to that. I want to see this team, the 3-point shot is the backbone of this offense. Obviously, we want to see them start early and find their shot from beyond the arc. But even if that shot is falling, whether it's falling or not, at the same time, if there's a lane to the basket, take it. The Jacobs loves the 7 seconds first shot, and that's a big part of this offense, and that's a productive way to try to keep yourself in the game is, first open shot, as many possessions as you can get. But when you're getting those possessions and they're not falling, then maybe you got to, take a step back, take the next step to the basket. And that's what they were doing in those matchups against Jacksonville, Texas State, FIU. And I think they can do that against ECU as well. I want to see Nico Moretti use his speed, get to the rim. Caleb Glenn, same thing. Trey Carroll, Baba Miller, all these guys. The last 2 are big guys, and they can put the ball on the floor. We even saw Matas do it at what game was that? That was Texas State. He did that at home. So if he can do that, even once, twice, 3 times a game, that's enough to draw people out of the paint. If he's up on the perimeter, you don't want to be deep down in the paint with Matas coming at you. You're going to get barreled. So I think this game, like I said, it's winnable, but I want to see some adjustments offensively, and I think we'll see it. We saw it in that 3 game. We saw them come in against FIU and play much better after that loss to FGCU. Now we're an AAC play. This isn't. We're not playing FIU anymore. These teams are going to be better, so it's going to be more difficult, but I think it's in them, and this team is battle tested. So, we're not really thinking about an at-large, but what I want to see it through each of these games is consistently getting better. So when we get to March, when we get to late February, the tournament time of the AAC tournament, this team is playing their best brand of basketball, and they can go into Dickies Arena, my favorite place on earth, Fort Worth, Texas, baby. I can't wait to be there. Love me some good Fort Worth barbecue. So they can go in there and they can dominate. I do think there's a chance this team has the potential to go on a Temple-esque run that they went on last year, where Temple was, decent in the regular season. Hopefully, no betting allegations for FAU like Temple had, but I think they can go in there and make a little bit of a run. And we're not there yet. We're not at the end of the season. An NIT bid, if they don't go in there and win that whole thing, we're not there yet. But year one, if they can win a couple games in that tournament, continually get better, make an NIT, and like Penny Hardaway said after the game, keep this group together and adding pieces and building that puzzle. I do think FAU basketball is on the right track. I know for some people it may be hard to see that after a 30-point loss. I understand that. No one likes to lose to Memphis. I think there's a little bit of a rivalry that's developed now between FAU and Memphis, and no one likes to lose. So, but trust the process. And maybe some good things will happen here down the stretch. ECU this Sunday, 1 p.m. From Greenville, North Carolina. We will not be there for Owl's Nest, unfortunately, but we will still have you covered. Nevertheless, both post game and all that good stuff over on FAU Owl's Nest on Twitter. Make sure to check that out this Sunday. Drew basketball season wages on, and its biggest supporter now. I saw him sitting front row yesterday for that matchup. Zach Kittley. He's hard at work too, putting together a staff and a roster. That's the new thing now in college athletics. You got to put together that roster every year. But he's doing both. And supporting FAU basketball at the same time. And I think that's awesome. I'm glad to see it. He didn't have to come to yesterday's game. He had to go to the first one, but he didn't have to come to yesterday's game. But he has that mindset. This is a big game on FAU versus Memphis was a huge game on FAU's campus. Everybody should have been there. The biology teacher who teaches freshman biology at FAU, she should have been there. Everybody should have been there. And so it's awesome to see that he's taking on that mentality. And I'm excited to see more of that. Let's get the players in there. I saw what school did this? Southern Miss, with all the new players from Marshall. They did a whole thing where they introduced them name. They got on the mic. They talked a little bit. All the players did that. And, I think that would be a cool thing for FAU football to do, to get some of these, fans who, they're not diehard FAU fans per se, but, they like basketball. They saw how fun the games can be. They're there. So let's introduce them to some of these football players, get a little bit of a personal side to it. Because, with football, that's one thing I've noticed, Drew, is it's kind of tough for a casual fan to develop like attachments to players when you're just watching them on the TV. They're wearing helmets, they're wearing uniforms. They're not it's not like basketball where you can see them all the time, and baseball, same thing. So sometimes it can be tough, but get them in talking on a mic and at the basketball game, give them a personal side. I think that'll be something to it. But Drew, I am liking this staff so far. For sure for FAU so far. We'll go position by position here though. But before we do that, general thoughts on the staff. We happy with it? Do we think in some of these analyst roles that haven't been filled yet? Is there something we need to fill? Is it what are you thinking right now?
General thoughts. Very happy. No complaints thus far. Nothing really skeptical in my end. To answer your question, stuff that needs to be filled. Well, we learned that our DB coaches will not be returning, so who's going to fill that role? We will see. One thing we learned is that our former defensive coordinator, Rock Bellantoni, fan favorite, and yeah, he's back at a different role, the same role he was in at Auburn, where he will be the outside linebackers / defensive ends / edge rushers, however you want to classify it, role. So the guys that will be getting after the quarterback will be coached by Coach Rock. So I'm a big fan of that move because that's the same thing he did at Auburn, which caught Tom Herman's eye enough to get him back in Boca Raton to be the defensive coordinator. staff in general, I'm a big fan of some of the moves. Specifically, I really like some of the guys they brought in. It's not only being a position coach in college football; it's about can you recruit as well. That's almost just as important. Bringing back some guys to FAU that have been here in the past, such as DJ McCarthy, the wide receivers coach, and Devin Santana, former defensive lineman for the FAU Owls back in the day. I like that a lot, as well as I like the tight ends coach, Jawan Delaney, was, the UTEP head coach. I forgot his name. He raved. Yep. He raved about how good of a recruiter he is. So that's really important, and I think it has been working out very well so far. I think the quality of players, the programs they come from, even production that they've had at those programs is certainly standing out to me in comparison to previous years.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's got a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who are hungry to me. We'll go through this list a little bit, but, a lot of I'm not going to say the guys on the coaches on Tom Herman's staff weren't hungry. I'm sure every coach wants to get up to the next best level, and we see this like with coaches on that staff accepting pretty substantial new jobs. I mean, look, Brandon Harris at UCF, strength coach Joey G remaining in the AAC. Those are just two off the top of my head, but I mean, not saying the last staff wasn't hungry, but these guys, in my opinion, it just seems like there's something about them. Like they want to like win. They want to turn this place into something special, and that's just off a few conversations with a couple of them. I haven't even talked to a lot of the assistants yet because they're hard at work. That's what I really like is they're hands on with recruiting. The general manager role is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's got to be people to sit there with the money and figure out, okay, we can give X amount of dollars to this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And, there's this player in the portal. There's this player who just regained eligibility, yada, yada. But to have your tight ends coach scouting the tight ends and then going to the GM or Kittley and whatever and saying, hey, I need this tight end because he's really, really good at this. That's huge. That's huge. So I like that. I do think that approach is very productive in my opinion. But going position by position here, for this staff. For the quarterbacks, there's some people / offensive coordinator, quarterbacks, offensive coordinator. There's some people who were like, where is the hire? I mean, I feel like that should be the most important one, right? You already got him. You got him when you sign the contract with the head coach. That's what you get with a young gun like Kittley, which I think is awesome. He's all in. He's not worried about, am I overcommitting? Da, 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 da. No, he is. We talked about this back when the opening press conference happened with Kittley. He is going to take the play calling. He's going to coach the quarterbacks. He's going to be the head coach. And I think that's an awesome, awesome mentality. And he's training a young gun right under him in Trent Vasey, who's been around him for a while. A young guy he's not from Texas, but he worked with him at Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. But he's got different ties to him, which I think that is cool. He's from the Northeast originally. And so I think that, that side of him, getting different kids, this staff, it's interesting to me. A lot of the cool thing about the last staff was it had a lot of different ties from different areas too. So to have that as well in terms of recruiting is just something I noted. But it's kind of the way Kittley talked about him is it just seems like he's that type of coach where, 5 years down the line, we're going to be hearing about him being that up and coming guy who worked in the high powered offenses of Zach Kittley and worked hands on with the quarterbacks like Kittley was. Like Kittley was working hands on with Mahomes. I see Trent Vasey being the focus of a feature article in about 5 years, how he worked hands on with Caden Veldkamp. And FAU set records. Fingers crossed. But
that's
Drew,
the goal.
Right. So Drew, what do you think about this quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator duo? Obviously, Trent's not the head coach duo, but he's with the quarterbacks and offensive coordinator. What do you think about that? Do you think there potentially should have been another hire there, or do you think that these two can collaborate and really do something special?
Well, before we do that, who asked that question? who's going to be calling play? This guy. This guy. How to get that? How to make sure? Not surprised that he's calling plays. In fact, I would have been. I don't know if irate, maybe slightly worried if he wasn't calling the plays because, I wrote an article about it. If you're an excellent play caller and that's what you're brought in as a head coach, don't take that out of your hands. I promise you have enough guys on your staff you could lean on. You could still call the plays. And Coach Vasey, he'll be working with the quarterbacks too. But as you said, Zach Kittley said, I'll be coaching the quarterbacks and I'll be calling the plays. So those two will not isolate each other from themselves. I know Mike McDaniel, there's a quote he said, good play callers don't isolate themselves. They take different, and that's the point. That's why, a guy like maybe Lane Kiffin, he has Charlie Weiss Jr. and he doesn't isolate himself. There's guys, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood. All these guys work hands-on with each other, even though the head coach has been, not stereotypically, but typically known as an excellent play caller while being the head coach. So I'm really a big fan of the operation. They're going to do a great job because, Kittley, his track record says that he will. Zach Kittley. One guy, we got to mention too is his time at Texas Tech, Baron Morton. He wasn't very well known in the college football world. He was a good recruit for Texas Tech, a high recruit. But he's been excellent. He was excellent. I was watching Texas Tech film. He looked smooth. He looked calm. He looked collected. That offense was moving. That offense was the best at, in the Big 12. The past 2 years, Baron Morton starts this year. He's awesome for Texas Tech. So I don't think his name should be isolated from the Patrick Mahomes and Bailey Zappi talk because I think there's a good chance that he's in the NFL eventually because that's how good he was when I was watching him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm excited to see this duo, see what they do. And like I said, I'm excited to see where Trent Vasey is going to be at in 5 years. It's just got that that vibe that he's going to be that next in the coaching world, as they describe it, the next big thing. But no running back coach yet, Drew. Chris Perkins. Not sure whether he's going to be back or not. Running back room has been pretty solid over the past couple of years. Kobe Lewis, Larry McCammon were fairly solid, and last year Zoo CJ fairly solid. And we see behind them, we saw in the last game, Xavier Terrell and Jamari Sands are solid right behind them. And there's a guy that not a lot of people know, but Caden Shield Dutton, who he's going to be, in my opinion, competing for that starting job this year. Big power back, a lot of speed for FAU as well. So I wouldn't be mad about Coach Perk coming back at all. A lot of Florida ties there, 305 native. So yeah. We'll see. We'll see for sure.
FAU's kind of gotten that label. That's kind of been their staple since becoming a program has been their running back rooms. Probably the one thing that they can, they could hang their head on as a program since, Howard Schnellenberger started it was that they are one of the RBUs of the G5. Probably Memphis gets that title, San Diego State up there with Marshall Faulk and such. But FAU after that, talk Devin Singletary starting on 3 different teams, having 1,000-yard seasons. You got Alfred Morris. You got Kobe Lewis was just with the Seahawks last year. Kareth White, Bucky Whitehead. There's they put a lot of running backs in the NFL, and the last 2 years, despite through injuries, their running back rooms have been impressive. CJ Campbell over 1,000 all-purpose yards and I think it was 14 touchdowns. He accounted for is definitely our best offensive player last year. Zuberi Mobley, another guy in that running back room that was impressive. And the year before that, with Kobe Lewis and Larry McCannon, and even before that, there were some good names. So the running back room has been impressive for the past few years. And since the program started, I'd love for Coach Perk to be back personally.
We shall see. I'm not against it. We'll take as many Florida ties as we can get, even with Coach Rock and DJ back on staff. But speaking of DJ McCarthy coming back to FAU, I like the move. He's been around. He's coached at a lot of different schools in Florida. Most recently, I'm forgetting it off the top of my head. That's actually why I needed to.
No.
Say that again?
Bethune-Cookman?
Yep, yeah, Bethune-Cookman. There we go. No, for some reason it wasn't in my notes, but um, yeah, and he's done a lot of different things, which I think is cool. He's not just necessarily been a wide receivers coach, special teams, tight ends as well, which I think all of that he can kind of use as a wide receivers coach. And also the recruiting side of it, he's been around here a long time. And also, he was at LSU when I believe Ruben Randall was there putting up numbers, which, shout out my Giants. I believe that was when he was at LSU, was that era of LSU. Oh, and also Patriots legend Brandon LaFell. Shout out to him as well on that LSU team. So he developed some pretty good wide receivers back then. I believe that was Les Mills' teams back then. So I like that. I like having good experience, coaching productive NFL wide receivers as well. And to get him on the staff, to kind of FAU of old when things were good, things were going well. They were winning games in 2019 as well. So that's a good move in my opinion. Keep those Florida ties strong. And in my opinion, one of my favorite moves. Tight ends coach, Jawan Delaney. As you mentioned, we talked about this already, so we won't go too deep into it. But as a tight ends coach, to also be an invaluable recruiter, I think it's awesome. Martavius Collins coming over from UTSU or UTEP, I think that'll be a solid move at tight end alongside Reed from South Carolina. I think they'll work some magic for sure out of the tight end position. Offensive line coach Stephen Hamby from Texas Tech was the offensive lineman at Texas Tech when they had some real success in the early 2000s. I believe he was the center on that team. Was let go from Texas Tech after not this season, but the season before that. But that they were in that first year there at Texas Tech, the cupboard was really bare. That's going to be the same thing here, though. To be fair, but I think you see success sometimes when guys need that second chance, and I think. Going back with guys he's comfortable with, Coach Kittley, he's been in this offense before. It's not like his offensive line has to adapt to a brand new offense. He has to adapt to a brand new offense. So I think that move will work out. I've heard some great things that from the offensive line guys about him. So that'll be a good pickup in looking back on it, in my opinion.
Yep.
Were you gonna say?
No, I agree completely.
Yeah, 100%. And then switching over to the defensive side of the ball, Devin Santana, as you mentioned, for FAU defensive lineman in the early 2000s, coming back was an analyst at Miami, assistant defensive line coach. So I like that move too. Him, DJ and Rock are really going to carry the Florida side of the recruiting, in my opinion. And to have them handle that, and to have Kittley, Skovanak, Vasey, all those guys go handle the Texas side of things, we could really bring in good talent from two of the biggest football hotbeds in the country, which I think is going to be really important. Also, Canes have had some pretty good edge rushers over the past couple of years. Devin Santana has been a part of that, and he knows what it's like to have success at FAU too, which is important. One of the under the radar moves, kind of not the flashiest of hires, but if you look at it, there's going to be some success here, in my opinion, too. Inside linebackers coach Aaron Schwann's coming over from an analyst role with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Has bounced around as an analyst at Auburn, at Louisiana. Spent a lot of time as a linebackers coach at Southeastern Louisiana. It sounds like he's got some time in Louisiana, so that's another recruiting hotbed right there. And he's had some success with those linebackers as well. So excited to see who becomes the next quarterback of that defense at middle linebacker. He'll be a big part of that for sure. I'm trying to see who's going to replace Jackson Ambush after some very successful seasons at FAU. As we mentioned, outside linebackers, Coach Rock. any edge rushers, depending on what you call it. I like that move as well. Rock worked hands-on with the linebackers at the end of last season too, along with Coach Sabine at the end of last year. So, and also, as you mentioned, at Auburn. So we'll see. I think that move's going to pay dividends on the field, but also in the recruiting department. Rock as a recruiter is unmatched in my opinion. And then the two big ones, defensive coordinator, and I imagine he's going to coach the DBs too, Drew. Brent Dewhurst comes over after some time at Coastal Carolina. His big stop as a safeties coach, DBs coach was at Texas State with our guy J-Mo. Jerron Morris played under him there, had some very successful secondaries during his time there. And this is his first time as a defensive coordinator. We haven't got to speak with him yet, but I'm excited to hear, what his vision is for the defense. Coach Kittley, has that confidence in him as a first-year play caller defensively. And it'll be exciting to see what this defense looks like. And, to have a young guy like that who's hungry to build his name as a defensive coordinator, that's something that's intriguing to me too. Special teams coordinator Tyler Skovanak, another young guy who to me it just seems like another guy who's going to try to grind his way up here. Could be like we were saying about Vasey, that we look back on in a couple years and all of a sudden best young special teams coordinator in the game. So, Drew, that's a pretty solid staff in my opinion. It's solid. Right now, you never know what happens. Don't want to put the cart before the horse, but on paper, and like I said, to me, I like the idea of these guys being hungry going after it. So
I agree. I think a lot of positives. And, I know Coach Rock, when he was at Auburn, put Derek Hall, who was a top 40 pick for the Seattle Seahawks, had a lot of sacks at Auburn and has translated that to Seattle, where he's had some young success. I know the middle linebackers coach, Anthony Schwanz, has put some guys in the NFL. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember reading about that. And Brett Dewhurst has coached some good DBs. And at Texas State, we got his one guy, Jaron Morris, who was our best defensive player from 2 years ago. Jaron Morris, we got him over here at FAU, but Brett Dewhurst coached him hands-on. And I'm really excited. I won't lie, kind of when I heard Brett Dewhurst at first, haven't heard the name much. And it's his first time at DC. So we're going to need to talk to him before we could form more of a judgment on that. And I think that's a super important hire. I've been saying it since day one for Coach Kittley. A lot of these air raid guys, they've had, it just happens where, since they're so offensive minded, they bring in a DC and, their defense isn't so solid, in our own conference alone. I think if Zach Kittley wants to take a next step as a head coach, the defense needs to be just as important as the offense. I think of, no disrespect to UNT, but their defense was not good last year or the year before that, but their offense was good. And Eric Morris, he goes 5-7 his first year, and he goes 6-6 the next. He might be 6-7. They're heavy underdogs against Texas State today. So you don't want to be 6-6, even though 6-6 would be, it would be a step up. But the goal is
I'm taking 6-6, and I'm going to the bowl game. I don't care.
Well, I agree, but the goal is not to be 6-6 every year. So 6-6 year one, maybe that's we'll take it as FAU fans, but the goal is not to be 6-6 every year. The defensive coordinator hire needs to be correct, and the defense they need to get after it, and they need to be a solid group. No 55-52 losses. As Zach Kittley said, he'd rather the 14-10 wins, and I couldn't agree more. So we'll see. But we could talk a little bit more about the players whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're going to take a quick break here. Do want to mention two more names before we just take a quick brief break. GM slash player personnel. Doesn't have a GM title, but it's what it looks like to me. Tyler Brown coming over after being the director of recruiting at Western Kentucky since 2018. So long time there, and had some success. A lot of talent goes to Western Kentucky, which I've noticed. And then strength and conditioning. Brandon Lee was an assistant strength and conditioning coach at Texas Tech. He replaces Joey G, who's off to Tulsa. Congratulations to him, landing on his feet as well. So that's awesome to see. And that's a pretty built staff, in my opinion. So we'll see who kind of gets some of these analyst roles as well. We'll see what happens with the scouting department. Jeff Love, Caitlin Skipper, Ryan Beer all depart. So far, Tyler Brown, only addition. Shane Marinelli, Matt Wisner, Kaz Kadanis, Anthony Tanz, all those guys in that department work hard in lieu of some departures, which is awesome to see. And so we'll see if those guys are just working hands on, or if there's some more moves to be made. But we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in just a minute. When we come back, we're breaking down the portal additions here onto this team, and maybe some more to come. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network here just after 3:50 here on Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Robbie and Stella, Drew Shula here. Drew, I think the most fun part now, I try to find fun in this new age of college athletics, and I love the new additions. I think it's like, first, it used to be high school recruits that, and those still, National Signing Day is still a fun part of the college athletics, college football, all that good stuff. But to me, the portal recruits, they come in every day. It's like Christmas presents all throughout the off season. And I think Zach Kittley and company have been hitting that portal pretty hard here in the early part of things. To me, the most fun part or the most fun addition so far have been the wide receivers. Four of them, in my opinion. Assad Wasim, Easton Messer. Those guys are going to be speed demons, potentially in the slot, having some success in that slot, which in the last offense produced LaJohntay Wester. We'll see what this Kittley offense produces. But on the outside, J.R. Wilson from Virginia is going to be in my opinion, could put up some crazy numbers. And then Damian Alford, in my opinion, as well. Those two on the outside, those four receivers right there for FAU. Man, I think they got a chance to do something special for sure this year in this offense. That in my opinion, that's how you get a 6'6" receiver in Damian Alford and a 6'5" receiver in J.R. Wilson. I mean, that's big time. These are big guys. These are like big DK Metcalf type receivers on the outside. I mean, DK Metcalf, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but same size. Drew, are we Are we excited to see this influx of talent at the receiver position?
Yeah, while we're excited about that, I think we could both agree. A different position. I think there's one player that we're really excited about. Probably our favorite addition. It's Garrison Smith, the kicker from Akron. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, he's accurate.
Garrison, we are very excited for you. But we'll talk about that later. But yes, but very excited about the wide receiver additions. I was looking at an article I was reading about the production lost and the production gained. And naturally, when you get a new coach, you're going to lose more players than you gain out of the portal. It's just how it is. But one position group that had massive production getting brought in, the wide receiver group. What was our least productive, probably most disappointing position group last year? The wide receiver group just didn't work out. Turned out that replacing LeJontay Wester with these guys wasn't exactly as easy as some people made it out to be. But you talked about it. The two inside guys, the slot receivers, in a spread air raid type offense like this, lining up in the slot, they line up 3-4 wide receivers at a time. So, they will be targeted. They will be running a variety of routes. And that's how you spread the field. It's basketball on grass, as some people like to say. So Easton Messer, we'll talk about the quarterback a little later, but he came with his quarterback, Caden Veldkamp. Easton Messer was the number 2. Well, he was the second most productive wide receiver for Western Kentucky, almost number 1. And he was the slot receiver for them. We saw him at the Boca Bowl. And he was pretty impressive despite a drop early on. He had a few chunk plays to help get the Western Kentucky offense going. Assad Wasim, Florida kid, high recruit out of high school. He just couldn't crack one of the best wide receiver rooms probably in the country with Colorado, who had, let's be honest, 4 wide receiver ones that could start anywhere. With Travis Hunter, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn Jr., and LeJontay Wester. Couldn't get on the field. There were some rumblings from the Colorado side that they were pissed he transferred because they really wanted him to be the next guy up after some of their receivers left for the NFL. So very happy to get Assad here. And then you talked about it, the 2 big guys, Damian Alford and J.R. Wilson. Best part about them, they played at their last stop. Their last stop, P4 place. Damian Alford didn't play it. He didn't hit the field as much at Utah, but at Syracuse, he was really productive. And then J.R. Wilson, he had some big plays for Virginia. He had a 66-yard touchdown against UNC. So big playability out of both of them, a lot of size. They have the ability to dominate in the AAC.
And we'll go to the quarterback position next because obviously, the receivers have to get the ball from somebody. Caden Veldkamp, that's the big one. But I'm not shrugging off Kason Wiseman coming back from the portal. Kason comes back from the portal. Was at Colorado last year. Could have potentially found his way back to a P4 if he had waited in there. Had some success as the FAU quarterback. Had some ups and downs. Wasn't the most success, but wasn't the worst either. And he's back as well, and he's recruiting for FAU, which I think is awesome. I love to see it. His high school center, Madden Sanker, coming from Louisville. I've followed that potential since the portal opened, and I love the South Paulding reunion we've got going on here. And so I think Kason and Caden at quarterback is going to be a bit of a battle in the spring, like we saw this year. And whether or not Kason wins that, I'm glad he's here. I think whether he's the starter or the backup, I think he provides a valuable role for this team. And then Caden Veldkamp, ton of potential right there in that arm. A guy that I do think is probably the favor to win that starting job, just because Conference USA Player of the Year, a lot of success in like a Kittley offense. Comes here with his wide receiver, looking to put up more numbers. He put up a very solid numbers at Western Kentucky last year. Wasn't the best, but wasn't also the worst season. Same thing but had more success than a lot of young quarterbacks have in a system where they are the feature piece like that. And so I'm excited to see him back in a Kittley offense. Now, you never know how things work out, at that quarterback position. That's why I'm glad there's 2 options there in Kason and Caden. And so, Drew, what do we think? What are we thinking about the quarterback addition? And I saw somewhere say, and somebody said this, that Caden Veltkamp has a chance to be the most successful FAU quarterback of all time.
Yeah, with your point, speaking about, yeah, definitely shouldn't brush off Case and Wiseman. That would not be a wise move. No pun intended right there, but hit the wise and wise. But yeah, no, it's always good to have two quarterbacks. Both have played in FBS Division I football in this past year and longer. Kaysen was a talented guy at a high school that definitely should not be forgotten. To get a Colorado offer, to get the offers he has, he was at Florida State camps and all and such. Definitely don't count him out. Just last year, first-year head coach John Summerall had Kai Horton, the quarterback for Tulane, who played against Ole Miss, almost beat them that year. He was a talented guy. Brought in Ty Thompson, a big recruit out of Oregon. But guess what? They started Darian Mensah, caught many people by surprise. So, quarterback battles in college, they can go any way. So definitely. But regardless, whoever is the backups, I've only heard good things about them as people, as teammates. It's always good to have two. You never know what happens. Specifically, at FAU, we've had injuries the last 2 years to our quarterbacks. So, but back to Veltkamp. The Conference USA Player of the Year. I put a tweet out about that in basketball. FAU has brought in the Conference USA Player of the Year in both sports. Kiki Tandy from Jacksonville State in basketball, Caden Veltkamp in football. FAU showing their ability to take in some guys from a conference that is not as superior as the AAC is definitely something that's very good to look at, considering we were just in Conference USA. It shows that we definitely belong in this conference. But Caden as a player, 6'6", big player, 230 pounds. He's going to have the ability to take hits. He's going to have the ability to run. And, if you're 6'6", 230, you better be able to air that ball out. And he definitely has an arm on him. He was in an air raid offense at Western Kentucky. He played under Ben Arbuckle, who was Zach Kittley's, right-hand man. He was the first guy to hire Arbuckle, who is now the Oklahoma offense coordinator. I expect Arbuckle to be a head coach, and within the next 2 years, I'd be surprised if he wasn't. He's going to do a great job at Oklahoma. So it just shows there is scheme familiarity, and I don't have the exact words, but Caden Veltkamp, when he committed to FAU, he said, he loved Western Kentucky. His dad coached there. He lived in that area, but the ability to play for Zach Kittley and this FAU offense, he just couldn't pass that up. So just shows, the players, it's legit. The offense, the words around Zach Kittley and what he does with the offensive side of the ball is definitely legit. So Caden's going to do, I think, best quarterback in FAU history. It's possible. I mean, you got to play 2 years at least. He's got 2 years left, barring some NCAA stuff, injury stuff, redshirt stuff, the whole nine. I think, Nkosi Perry did a really good job those 2 years that he was here. He's got to clear that bar. But I think it's possible, especially, in this offense, it's going to throw the ball a ton. Bailey Zappi only threw for about 60 touchdowns with Zach Kittley. So I'm not expecting 60 touchdowns, but he's going to throw a lot of them. That's for sure. I think more than when he was at Western Kentucky. I expect 30.
An NCAA record in touchdowns would be crazy, but he's got targets to do it. I mean, look at the tight end position. Reed McCaska, hopefully I pronounced that right. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation, but Reed comes over 6'5", 265 for tight end. Had a ton of offers at a high school, Tennessee, LSU, Miami. Came down to Miami, South Carolina, picked South Carolina. Was a part of some success there. Didn't see the field a ton, but in high school was very involved, really plus-level blocker, ran a 4.78 40, which is pretty solid for tight ends. He's going to be speed. There's going to be some speed there for sure, and to have the ability to block too, I think he'll bring in a level of both blocking and pass catching ability that's similar, if not potentially better than what FAU was able to get out of Zeke Moore. That's what Zeke Moore's strength was. He was able to do both fairly well. We'll see what happens, but I think there's a chance that Reed is special in this offense as well. And he's not the only tight end they bring in. As we mentioned, UTEP tight end Martavius Collins comes in. He's 6'4", 260. He comes over after working hands-on with Coach Delaney over there at UTEP. So he has a little bit more experience, and he also played on the defensive side of the ball in high school, which I like having players who have experience on both sides of the ball. You understand things a little bit better. Drew, from what you've seen in the film, how pivotal is the tight end role you think will be in this Kittley offense?
I think it's big. I mean, at Texas Tech, they had 3 tight ends, and they used all of them, which isn't very – when you talk air raid, it kind of gets a little technical. I don't think most coaches really limit themselves to every principle of what an offense is supposed to be like. I think they use I think they use the strengths of their team. Texas Tech had an excellent running back in Taj Brooks, who will be an NFL draft pick. He only rushed for about 2,800 yards in 2 years for Texas Tech. So they used him, and they used tight ends. I remember Conyers was the last name. John Carlos Miller was another. And there was another tight end for Texas Tech. If you're a Tech fan watching right now, I apologize for not remembering. But there are 3 tight ends. They combined for 10 touchdowns. FAU last year wasn't even close to that. It's just how it is. They are willing to throw the ball to their tight ends. There was one I remember. I was watching one game. It was against North Texas. They even threw a screen out to their tight end. They're willing to line them up wide. They're willing to line them up on the line. And especially in the RPO game, which is taking football by storm, especially in college, whether it's a pop pass, whether it's a flat route of some sort, they are willing to use their tight ends. Right now, it's college football. A lot of unknown in this FAU tight end room because of just how little FBS production has been shown. Someone's going to step up, whether it's, Khalil Brantley's still with the team. He's probably the most experienced. Elijah Brown and Reed are probably the 2 most talented with the most NFL-type bodies, and definitely don't count out Martavis Collins. He's coming over from UTEP. So right there's 4 names, and there are some more, and I expect it's very possible they bring in even some more. The tight ends will be used in this offense for sure, whether it's blocking or receiving.
Speaking of blocking, the only portal addition so far on offensive line is a big one. Madden Sanker comes over from Louisville. He was a highly, highly rated recruit. Out of high school, he would have been top 5 of all time ranking wise for FAU, and so he's got the ability to play guard or center. Like I said, I just love the name. I love the vibe. It seems like from what I've heard, from what I've seen, seems like a really good person, and also going to be a big addition for this offensive line, potentially replacing Federico Maranges at center. That's a big loss. Fed was a good dude and an even better center. So hopefully. Madden will be able to follow in those footsteps a little bit. But I'm excited, potentially could return to playing with his high school quarterback, which, hey, it's always good to have some chemistry between your center and your quarterback. So like that move for sure. I think more offensive line moves is something I definitely want to see. We're going to need some more depth there for sure. But they also already brought back Daughtry Richardson, Alex Aktovich. I
feel like one of the young guys has to step up too. Last year, Jordan Church, he steps up, talented left guard. He balls out.
He's at Louisville.
Yeah, his offensive lineman coach isn't here now. He goes to Louisville. So a little trade there from Louisville and FAU, which kind of has a little bit of history. Just some fun facts, with Howard Schnellenberger, with some of the players in the past few years. You figure Madden Sanker is going to be on the left side of the line. He could play both tackle or guard. You figure him and a young guy, or maybe it's another transfer guy. Maybe it's a guy like Vincent Corney, who was brought in from Bethune-Cookman. So there'll be some different combinations. They have a very long time to figure out who the starting 5 is going to be, but you figure Madden Sanker is going to be one of them.
Yeah, you mentioned Vince Forney. I almost forgot. He was the first commit from the era, from which I think is pretty cool. And to be that first commit, it's got to be some high value behind that. So we'll see if Vince can kind of crack the rotation here at FAU. We'll see. Like you mentioned, a lot of young guys in that room as well that could potentially make their name known next year. So we shall see. But on the defensive side of things, 2 D linemen brought in so far. Nawan Barber from Coastal Carolina, and then an East Sledge from Illinois. So 2 pieces so far. Believe both of those guys will be interior. I believe Nawan's interior. I know Anise
Yeah, I
is
think
for
both.
sure.
I think both.
Uh,
They're both over 300 pounds. We got
yeah,
Anise is 320 and Nate Juan's 310. So definitely
yeah,
expecting both to be manning down the defensive tackle positions.
yep. Which and I mean, Nawan was hands on with Dewhurst, so there's some familiarity there. We saw Rock do well with Des Tisdale when he came over with him from Auburn. So not a ton of numbers for Nawan at Coastal, but could potentially be his chance now. Maybe this is his guy and that defensive coordinator. We'll see if he has some success there on the interior. Owls do lose Jaden Wheeler to the NFL draft and Jacob Merrifield to South Florida. So some openings there for sure in the interior. Bryce Langston, though, should be back. He has eligibility remaining. Unless he hits the portal and I missed that, but I don't think I did. I think he's still here.
Who are we talking
Uh,
about?
Bryce Langston,
Yeah, I think he should still be here.
yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah.
You never know, but as far as I know, he's still here. And then in East Sledge, I like getting guys with Power 4 experience, even though if they, our guy Christian hit Tom Herman with that last year. The most impressive thing about your team is the Power 4 experience. Now, I don't know if that's the most impressive thing.
Yeah, don't think that, Mr.
I don't know about that, but it's cool. It's important, It's nice to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Sledge is a Louisiana guy, so Anthony Schwann's right there, a little connection. I'm looking into it. I don't think there was any crossover, but we played Illinois last year. He committed to them after the season for them last year. Last year, one guy that Illinois had was Jerzon Johnny Newton, who was a top 40 pick in the NFL draft, starting for the Washington Commanders. So I thought he might have been playing under him, but it looks like he transferred in to Illinois after Johnny Newton committed to the draft.
yeah. He only played in a couple games this year
Yeah.
for the Fighting Illini. However, shout out our guy over at FAU Owls Nest, Rich Pereira, keeping everyone updated with recruiting news. He got this quote from Innis. He said, "I had the opportunity to either go back Power 5 or Group of 5, but I decided to come here because of what I see." He, talking about Coach Kittley, is building. I love how Coach Kittley moves and operates. He's the man for the job, and I feel like the AD made the right decision. Well, there you go, Brian. Right, you got a note of confidence from an East Sledge, so that should make everyone happy
One
all
thing,
around.
one thing I should note real quick, my apologies, is that he committed to Auburn in 2021, which you do the math correct. Coach Rock was on that staff then. Maybe a little familiarity, and Rock isn't coaching the interior defensive lineman, but he's coaching the edge rushers, the outside linebackers, defensive ends. So, but there's some different fronts that they could play, and there might be a little crossover where there's a little familiarity with the two. And last year there was guys like Prince James Boyd who were rushing off the edge, on some 3-down lineman stuff. So you never know. Maybe Sledge is a guy that they use in different spots. And shout out Coach Rock. He probably was big into getting the name East Sledge, brought into FAU.
We had the 18-wheeler in Jaden Wheeler. Now we got the sledgehammer in the interior.
I like that.
Some awesome names always around at FAU football, for sure. I don't know about an awesome name, but our new potential middle linebacker has some awesome hair. Tyler Stolsky, transferring in from Minnesota. Got the golden locks going on. Stolsky, 6'3", 230, interior linebacker for the Owls. Played in 23 games in Minnesota, 32 tackles, 2.5 for loss, and a sack during his time for the Golden Gophers. I like the move. It's interesting. Minnesota to Boca. To me that just shows Kittley is hitting that portal. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you've got. If he watches the film and he likes you, can come on down to paradise. And that's exactly what this move looks like to me. Was a very successful high school player in Michigan, and now he gave a quote again to our guy Rich with FAU Owls Nest. He said, "I have been told I'm very coachable and take direction well. I'm a hard hitter that doesn't back down no matter how big my opponent is." 3-star out of high school. Whether or not he's the starting linebacker wearing that green dot, I don't know. But he's got experience and a decent amount of experience too. What was it, 23 games across seasons? That's not bad. That's some decent experience.
And some special team work. I remember seeing a little bit of that. And one thing notable about Stolsky, he was a team captain for them. So never a bad thing, that's for sure.
No, that means – I don't know, but just kind of basing off the social media, it seems like he brings good vibes to the locker room for sure. So, as we saw, as you mentioned, team captain. So, excited to see what he's bringing to that linebacker core level hard hitter, team captain, good energy type of guy for sure. So, I believe this is the last move, unless I'm missing something. A DB, Purdue transfer. Derek Rogers comes on over. He's 6'1", 175 at corner. He played in every game last season for Purdue. Four starts out of the 12 games. 3 PBUs on the year. I think he's got a chance to really kind of be that number one corner for FAU. Now, I'm sure there's going to be other guys fighting for that. Day Hill still here as well. As far as I know, I don't think he went to the NFL draft. Not sure on that one.
He might be. I know he's draft eligible. He might be entering, but I might be completely wrong. I just thought he was already taken like a bowl. Not like a Senior Bowl type level invite. It's not that, but it might be like a Shrine Bowl or something.
I don't know.
Not completely sure, but regardless, Rogers is someone I'm super excited for. I think, if there's one guy that people aren't talking about enough, I think Derek Rogers might be it for this FAU team. Because regardless, we're losing one starting corner in Bugs Brown to the NFL draft.
Yeah, my bad. Day Hill is entering the NFL draft. He did graduate from FAU. Congrats, Day. Congratulations.
Our 2 boundary corners are both entering the NFL draft. They're out of eligibility, so I think Derek Rogers is something.
Well, Day technically could have another year eligibility, but
yeah, I think I'm very excited though about Derek Rogers coming here. He played and he was sought after in both high school and the portal, so should be very excited for that.
I think that wraps up all the portal moves, Drew, unless I'm missing one.
No, you're forgetting our guys.
Oh, I am missing one. Another linebacker comes over from Marshall, Leon Hart. Yeah. So there we go. I think that's another move that he could potentially fight in there for that starting linebacker job. 6'1", 215 gives me more of an inside linebacker kind of build. Did not play he did not start, He did play for Marshall last year. He appeared in all 12 games, 13 tackles, and 2 for a loss. So, I think this is a chance for him to kind of make his name known, and kind of him and Stolsky both have a little bit of playing experience. Hart a little bit less, but like the move. Don't know who else he was recruited by. I wanted to see that. But he also has I was trying to see his high school sacks. Yeah, he had 22 sacks in high school, which, that's not a bad thing to have if your inside linebacker can pass rush as well. Had some big offers at a high school. Consensus 3-star. Had offers from Alabama, Kentucky, Penn State, Miami, and Syracuse and Maryland before enrolling at Marshall in 2022. I like that. I think it's going to be an opportunity for him to kind of make his name, as I mentioned. So that, though, is the last one alongside Jackson Lee, long snapper from FIU, coming over crosstown, long snapping, and Garrison Smith as well. Can't forget about him. We tried to talk about him earlier, but I think Garrison Smith is going to be a pretty solid addition looking back on that one for sure. Very accurate kicker in his time at Akron. Never has missed a PAT in his career.
And hey, one thing you got to think about too. I mean, going from Akron to Boca Raton to kick the ball. I mean, come on, is there a better upgrade than that? Just location wise. I mean, Akron, it's windy, it's icy, it's cold, it's the middle of Ohio. Compared to you're in Boca Raton. You're at sea level. It's 82 degrees every day. Garrison, I think you'll enjoy kicking at FAU.
I do too. I think it'll be a little bit better than Akron. But that wraps it up for sure. That's all of our all the portal moves so far for FAU. More to come though, I'm sure of it. And we'll see kind of who those moves are and what we're looking to add after the spring season. It'll be coming up sooner than later for sure. But Drew, gone over here a little bit. I do want to touch on it though, since Wendell Fullord is coming back to FAU with an extra year of eligibility. Obviously, Diego Pavia kind of set the tone for everybody with his court case ruling. Due to JUCO, he gains an extra year of eligibility, and now there's players across the country getting that too. And then it came out today that the NCAA is looking into just making it 5 years for everybody. Are you a fan of that? Do you think it should just be 4 years? Do you think that the JUCO year players who play in JUCO should get an extra year too? What are your thoughts?
I'm not in love with giving the JUCOs extra eligibility. I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. Just everything that goes on. I'm not super opinionated on it. You're kind of just used to seeing like the 25-year-old college athlete now. COVID helped with that. Injury, I completely understand. Injury redshirt. That's kind of it's terrible. You got our guy like a BJ Alexander gets hurt right before the season when he's supposed to have a breakout year. He's a leader in the receiver room. He gets hurt. I understand if someone like him were to get a injury redshirt, completely understand. But the COVID year gave everyone an extra year, and now JUCO, it's a bit too much. I like the 5-year rule if it means you take away the redshirt, because there are ways you could screw over if you're a coach. It might not be malicious intent. It might not be your intent to do it, but there are ways that you could screw over the development of your player, whether you don't redshirt him and he needs that development, or you redshirt him and he's ready to rock and roll. Not in love with it. Maybe you get rid of the redshirt idea and just go to 5 years. Saw that floated around, so don't hate that idea, but not super opinionated. But don't love the JUCO rule.
That's where I'm at. 5 years, only way you get a red shirt is if you miss, I don't know, more than half of the season games, more than 8 games, something like that. And other than that, you can't fake an injury. If you figure out you're faking an injury, then you get a fine. I don't know, something like that though. I don't think this JUCO nonsense is good for the sport. I think that kind of devalues the high school players. And yes, you'll develop players more, and players will come into the college game a little bit more polished. And will that look good? Sure, maybe. But it kind of ruins that fun side of college athletics as well. So we'll see what happens with that. Folks, thank you so much for taking some time to tune in today. If you missed it in the first half, we talk everything FAU basketball, everything with the new FAU football coaching staff. Second half, we talk all the new portal additions for the Owls. Folks, we will be back again here next week on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. It's springtime here at FAU. Wintertime has come to a close. Softball season, baseball season right around the corner. We're in the heat of basketball season. A lot of fun stuff upcoming in the world of FAU AAC as well. AAC tournament just a couple months away in hoops. All that good stuff, folks, is going to be on tap in the next couple of months right here on FAU Owls Nest Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Folks, thank you once again for tuning in. For Drew Shula, I'm Robbie Lastella. We'll catch you next time.